Alright, hey everyone, this is Ash. Welcome back to The King's Speech. So, just a couple of quick channel notes, updates, and things before we dive into this video proper. I'll put out a proper channel update at some point today, just with actual like detailed itineraries, supposedly like what to expect from the channel, when read-throughs and stuff are coming back, things like that. With that said, yeah, I'm doing the One Piece chapter review video right now. Then I'll also do one for Spy Family today as well, and that thing that's going to be the extent of it, at least for this weekend. Like I said, I'll cover everything else in detail in the channel update, but I'm probably still not going to get back to read-throughs proper until the end of May, just because it's been so long since I've read the material. I need to kind of reread it to kind of refresh my thoughts on everything that happened. So like I said, channel update will go into that in detail. So without further ado, let us dive into One Piece chapter 1012. Itch, as we have a cover page. Reader request of Kid is so focused on building a bird out of scrap metal, he doesn't realize his head got turned into a bird's nest by Atsuki. It's very, very adorable. There's something 3 days, I don't know, 99% something written on his shirt. Oh no, it's a 3D path apparently. And 99 something percent. By Ichiro Oda, translation Stephen Paul, lettering by Vanessa Satone. So like I used to do before, I'm just going to kind of skim through it start to finish with thoughts on the thing. This should be relatively short video, I think. So a few of my friends had pointed this out, being like, oh, and like this kind of ties into like larger criticisms of how underdeveloped the scabbards are. But a lot of my friends were hoping we get some kind of reconciliation between Kiku and Izo, with the fact that Izo basically abandoned his sister when he ran off of Wano, and like apparently just never bothered to kind of keep in touch or say anything, or like let Kiku know that he was alive. So I was kind of just meh on it because the relationship was so underdeveloped. But man, like this is just kind of telling of like how little effort Oda's putting, not into the story in general, but also just into like the relationship between these scabbards, and like how ill developed it was. Because Izu's like, oh, Kiku, does your arm pain you? And Kiku just like does the whole Monty Python thing where she's like, oh, tis but a scratch, you pansy. And she's like, no, it's merely an itch until my very life is expanded. And she's like, oh, no worse than the itch this one felt in the heart on the day you left for good. And Izu's like, yeah, sorry about that. Oh, well. And they just kind of move on without even, kind of acknowledging it. And it's not me saying that, there need to be like, this like huge back and forth where they need to like talk it out and have like a huge emotional moment, like be shouting at each other or anything for that to be impactful. But the fact that again is just handled in such a blasé manner kind of just diminishes not only the relationship between them, but like the impact of because in the flashback these two are supposed to be like really, really close. It was like, oh, their parents were like executed as traitors or something, like they lost their parents and they had to like survive only on relying on each other until they met the other scabbards and anything. But it doesn't really feel like these two have any kind of familial bond at all with this kind of banter. Like it doesn't feel like either of them really particularly missed each other, is the sense I get from this. But honestly, at this point, I'm not surprised that Oda's just kind of rushing it and going for kind of the low-hanging fruit to kind of reconcile everything that he set up so far. But it just feels super lazy from Oda, and it just like there's no impact to it. Which brings us to the other thing of Kawamatsu asking like, oh, if the country's opened up, like what do you hope for Wano? And he was like, oh, we'll talk about that in the morning. This kind of, to me, again, cements the idea that the Wano is going to end pretty much when dawn breaks over the island. So like in the morning, by the time dawn breaks morning, comes up to Wano, I'm guessing is when Kaido will be, defeated by Luffy. The citizens all celebrate. Fire Festival's officially over now. The big bad is all defeated and everything. So I'm pretty sure, like, even though it's not confirmed, that's gonna be basically the timeline we're looking at. I don't know if we're gonna get an actual time update, like, oh, it's so many hours past midnight or whatever, but whatever. Just want to comment on that quickly. I don't recall exactly which video I pointed this out in, but I pointed this out as exactly what's happening. I said that Kinemon is going to be the only one ending up going to actually, like, getting to Momo, and the other Scours will all pair off for one reason or another, and we're seeing it happen here. Again, like, there's no sense of, like, narrative cohesion here for, like, why they're splitting off. They're just, like, splitting off. Because I've seen a few other people, like, comment and critique on this specifically. And again, like, Drizzt was the only one I've seen has, like, good critique of this. Where he pointed out, the Scabbards were all like, oh, we have to get to Momo, we have to protect him, it's our duty and everything. And as soon as they settled on that mission, it seems like they immediately lost sense of, like, what exactly they're trying to do or achieve, because now they're just splitting off, like, willy-nilly without seeming to really care that, what their initial mission was, and, like, they need to protect Momo. Like, they haven't got any confirmation, like, the Momo safe, and, like, oh, it's safe for them to go do this other thing, or safe for them to go after these other people. They're kind of just arbitrarily deciding, like, yeah, it's fine, I'm just going to go, go do my own thing because the narrative demands that I need to be doing it. Again, like, I'll talk about this at the end. I don't know if this is just a symptom of Oda having done too much and he's trying to wrap everything up quickly, or what my other guess for what this is, and this one I think I'm more certain on, or at least leaning towards more. This feels again like another Oda trying to, like, do the reveal for the hybrid form for Kaido on the roof. It feels like he's trying to get certain narrative threads either tied up or, branched out, whatever, so that he can get to some other narrative, set piece that he has in mind before he can, like, actually progress the plot further. That's why it feels like, he's just having the other characters just kind of run around willy-nilly, not really doing anything or not having a specific goal in mind, because he doesn't seem to have, because he hasn't set up the story yet for them to be where they need to be. So he's kind of just having them run around haphazardly until he's set up enough of the, the pieces on the board so he can move them where they need to be. Which, like, Kiku now being like, oh, I'm sorry I couldn't cut down Kinemon the first time, but, this time for real I'm going to vanquish him. Like, you got to trust me. Like, I love Kiku. Like, she's one of my favorite characters, but again, there was never any kind of, like, relationship between her and Kanjuro that was emphasized on, for like the reason as to why she's so, like, hell-bent on being like, oh no, I have to be the one to cut down Kanjuro. It can't be anyone else. Like, this is my duty. Like, there's no real reason for her to be, like, so determined to be like, no, I have to be the one to do it. Like, unless I'm missing something, because I admit I do forget about stuff that's happened in this arc because it's been going on for so long. But I'm pretty sure there was never, like, any hint of, like, a closer relationship between Kanjuro or Kiku where she's like, oh no, I have to be the one to cut him down. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And again, there's no reason now that she's like, oh, last time I couldn't do it, but this time for sure I'm going to be able to do it. Oh, absolutely. There's nothing stopping me now. I've got no regrets anymore. Like, it just feels like Oda's just, doing this just because he has to, not because he actually has, like, a well-developed narrative in mind. And, like, again, that goes to Cat Viper with Shishilian just randomly showing up and be like, oh my god, guys, the guy that killed Pedro's here somewhere. And, like, like, other people point out, like, Cat Viper didn't know that Pedro's dead. And, he's one of Pedro's, like, Pedro's one of Cat Viper's top officers and things like that. But again, it just seems to come out of nowhere. It seems like a way for him to just be like, oh, I can't have Cat Viper with this group right now. I need him over here instead, so I'm going to have this plot point, something drag him away to this fight. And where the hell is Kawamatsu and Issa just running off to like Kawamatsu. It doesn't even look like Kawamatsu saw anything. He's just like, oh, fuck you guys. I'm going to go off to this side now randomly for some reason. And Izo's like, yeah, I'm going to do the same. Oh, I have to follow Kawamatsu for some reason. It just feels so awkward and forced the way Oda's trying to like separate all these characters. Like there's no natural flow or progression to this. But honestly, like, should I be surprised at this point? Like Oda's like there's been such a dip in quality in Oda's writing. There's a specific thing in this chapter I want to address with regards to that because it bugged me the most. God, Yamato. When Yamato was first introduced, like I really liked him and I had like my interest was peaked and each chapter steadily just been like going exponentially lower because Oda just absolutely fucking refuses, to stop his dumb shtick of like, oh, I have to, conserve the mystery of what Yamato's whole deal is. Oh, I have to wait for the backstory. Like, yeah, I guess we'll eventually get Yamato's backstory, and yes, we'll eventually get an answer like what his whole deal is, like what his dream is, blah blah blah, the whole 9 yards. But that doesn't mean like you couldn't give Yamato some more development, like hint at some different aspects to the character. Because it's like, yeah, all right, he's super earnest, he wants to go fight. He looks like kind of a meathead. That's all fine, but he's just been literally spending chapters and chapters and chapters just running around, going, oh, I am Oden, oh, I am Oden. And the gags are just getting so tired with how one-dimensional like all these characters are behaving and acting. Like it's just there's a lot going on and it's making the chapters look busy and making it seem like there is stuff happening, but if you take a really close look at it, like there really isn't anything happening at all. And like it's obvious that like Momo reading Oden's journals, he's gonna like come to some revelation or realization that Oda's gonna cock tease the hell out of for like 30 chapters. Momo will be like, oh my god guys, I figured out something from my father's journals, and Oda's just gonna like pander to that for as long as he can, and I guarantee that whatever the reveal he's gonna come up with will not be worth all the hype and setup he's gonna set up for it. It just will not be worth it. But we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe it'll be like the Roger laugh where the fandom just loses their minds over the dumbest of stuff, but we'll see. I'll admit the Zoro Sanji stuff, even though I hate Shitji with every fiber of my being, I'll admit it was really amusing seeing Zoro basically being like bundled up in like a hammer shaped cross with so many bandages and Shitji having to like basically carry him around everywhere. And Law basically just, falling into Shitji's lap and he has to carry him around. That was really amusing. But again, like, to my thing of like how one-dimensional characters have been, like, oh, of course Shitji has to reiterate the giggle, like, oh, ha, 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 they're not women, ha, 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 why do I have to carry you around? It's so funny, like, again, these jokes, first time you hear it, it's funny. The 1000th time you hear it, it just gets stale. And when that's the only thing you get from these characters is these stale repetitions of these stupid ass jokes over and over and over again, it loses its I don't want to say originality. It loses its flavor really, really quickly. So like yeah, there's some funny moments in this like interaction, but it got dragged down so quickly with shitty stupid shit. Law just fucking off until like Shitji like, oh, he's got 30 broken bones, make sure he's breathing, I'm fucking off. And Shitji being like, I'm not a fucking doctor, Jim. I'm a doctor, not a whatever fucking Bones from Star Trek does. Gave me the same vibes. Zoro's not out for the count. Like, it's so obvious he's not out for the count. Mark is going to heal him with his flames. Some magical bullshit will happen. Zoro will come back full strength. It's going to be Manchuri 2.0 again. Like, there's no surprise or tension or anything with this. Like, we can tell exactly what's going to happen. So it's only a matter of, like, when is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? How is Zoro going to get back into the fight? But with such little investment in everything else going on, it doesn't really, the question of like when is it going to happen really isn't that interesting, given how there's no real kind of, challenge for the Straw Hats at this point. Like, it's not like, oh, they have to keep Zoro, healthy and out of danger so he doesn't have any more bones broken during this fight. They're struggling against, masses of enemies. There's nothing really like that to add tension to this scene, so it kind of undercuts any of the supposed danger that they're going to be facing while he heals, or while they're trying to find a way for him to heal. Again, moderately amusing with Nami trying to play both sides, with her trying to get Big Mom on her side and trying to get Ulti on her side, so they'll fight each other. And again, like, it was amusing for a second, but the entire rest of the chapter just drags it down. Like, that's the problem with, even getting sparks of these moments where it's like, oh, haha, this scene, felt like good writing, and it felt like when the series was, in its highlight moments. Like, it just gets immediately dragged down by the rest of the poor narrative pacing and writing in the rest of the chapter. Like, again, this prime example of what I've been like continually reiterating that feels like Oda is just stalling for time. Because Ulti and Page One have been chasing Nami and Usopp and Tama and the dog for like 20 chapters or something now. And Ulti, within a few seconds, is just like bounces around like Bellamy, smashes into the dog, takes it out without, a whisper of effort. So, why did it then take her so fucking long? Why did it take them 20 chapters to get to this point of frustration where they're finally like, oh, we can just take the dog out, no problem? Like, maybe you can argue that, the one panel, like, oh, Komochiro just looks super tired, so, like, maybe he slowed down, whatever, and, like, that's why she's able to catch up, but it still feels like if they had really, really wanted to take them down by this point, they could have expended a little bit more effort to actually do it. Like, it did not look like Ulti or Page One were giving their best effort to try and take them down. It felt like they're just kind of like going through the motions of chasing them without any real intent of actually doing anything. It's like when Page was clamped onto the dog in the last chapter, he's just kind of like riding it along while like Nami and Usopp were just battering him to no effect. You're telling me like he couldn't have smacked the dog down or like bit into it or like dragged it down like, like a lion getting onto its prey and dragging it down like or going for its legs or something to try and like maim it so it slows down. Like, that's exactly what I mean. Where it's like it's just poor narrative cohesion. Which brings me to the only stuff I have anything to say about this chapter, which is the Nami moment, which I know everyone's gonna lose their minds over because like, oh my god, Nami's such a queen. Oh, she's so badass. Oh, blah blah blah. This is Oda. I've been trying to think of a word. I couldn't think of a proper word for this. So this is the example I'm going to use. But this is Oda going for the low-hanging fruit. The example I wanted to use, I don't know how many people are actually going to get this example, but this is the one that first came to my mind because it's exactly what it reminded me of. And this example I'm using annoyed me the same level as this one did. Where, in, I think, Expendables, either 2 or 3, I can't remember which one, but they introduce Liam Hemsworth's character. Like, they introduce him, he's the newest Expendable. Right, and he becomes like the emotional crux of the film where they're like, they set up this whole thing where like, oh, he has a wife back home or he has a girl back home, oh, he's got this sad backstory where his dog died and everything. Like, they were just putting like throwing everything at the wall that could stick to be like, oh, readers like emotional investment when you have, either a kid or a puppy or something that's helpless, or where you have the main character have like a wife or someone that they rely on for emotional investment. So when they're killed, you're like, oh, now I'm invested in this character's journey, their struggle to get revenge and all that nonsense, right? And that's what I mean with like, that's what I'm kind of getting out with this Nami scene is like, all right, you got the low hanging fruit of like, oh, as soon as someone smacks a child, it's gonna trigger a reflex response in the reader to be like, oh my god, how could someone be a helpless child, especially one that's so cute and adorable like Tama's like, oh my god, they're so evil and blah blah blah. And I'm not saying that, oh, it's bad storytelling, it's bad writing, like how dare you rely on it. Like, it's a trope for a reason and it's relied on for a reason. The reason I'm saying it's so bad is that Oda is obviously doing this, you know, to try to get. Let me back up, I guess, for a second. My main issue with the scene is that Oda hasn't done any build up with regards to, you know, the relationship between Nami or Tama here, and it kind of and the emotional investment of this entire scene, and you know, in our hate of Ulti, and in our, you know, emotional investment for Nami being finally invested in the fight, is her being like, oh no, look, a child, like, oh, you know, because we know Nami cares about children, so of course seeing one get hurt in front of her is gonna like trigger her motherly instincts, and she's gonna start kicking ass. And it's meant to elicit a specific emotional response in this scene, in this singular scene only, but it doesn't really tie into the larger narrative at all. And that's what annoys me the most about this, is that there has been an opportunity for Oda to tie this in to the larger narrative and to have Nami actually be invested in the plights of the citizens of Wano as a whole. Because if you look at this scene, there's literally no difference between what happens here and what happened on Punk House, where Nami's like, oh, I see children in trouble, and, you know, I'm going to go rescue them, blah, blah, blah. Because, you know, you could literally have replaced Tama with any other generic child. You know, you could have replaced her with Toko, you could have replaced her with, I don't know, some random, let's say this fight happened in Wano, you could replace it with some random street urchin and still get kind of the same effect. Because it's not really specific to Nami's character. And the thing is, like, thinking back about it, like, thinking back, because I've seen a lot of comments from people recently talking about, you know, oh, the Straw Hats don't have much room to develop anymore. Oh, you know, there's not really much you can do with their characters and stuff. And this is the thing that bugs me, that people keep going on and on about how Oda's like, oh, you know, Oda's got such a great memory, and like, oh, you know, he brings back all these forgotten details that no one remembers, blah blah blah. And like, all right, let's look at this. Like, Wano is an arc where it's like, all right, there's a tyrannical despot, you know, ruling over a nation that's completely isolated from the outside world. Its citizens cannot reach out to, you know, anywhere else for help. They're completely dependent on, you know, the charity and the benevolence of their tyrannical despot to continue to be able to survive. You know, and if they try to fight back, rally forces, whatever, they'll either get tortured, experimented on, killed, whatever. Is there something similar that happened to Nami at some point? Oh man, I don't know. Maybe feels like there's something in her past that would make her, you know, super was from super invested in their plight. Something that would, you know, remind her something she went through. Oh, what was that arc? You know, it's a lot of people say it's their favorite arc in the series. I don't know. Sarcasm aside, though, like, Wano is literally a rehash of like aspects of Arlong Park, where you have Arlong Park, island ruled by a tyrannical despot who isolates the island's residents from literally everyone else outside. They can't do anything to fight back, or else, you know, their family, loved ones, everything will be killed. Blah blah blah, you know. And the main character is a little girl, you know, who has to use her ingenuity and her wiles to kind of like free her village, the same way Tama's kind of trying to do the thing, you know. And we also have Toko as well, you know. Also, Tama and Toko are both orphan children, with Toko having been taken in by a parental figure who was also killed right in front of her by a man wielding a gun. There's so many narrative threads from Nami's backstory that Oda could have tied in thematically to Wano, to have her actually be invested emotionally in the struggles of these people, and actually have built a personalized connection with Tama, apart from just, oh, you know, oh, generic little kid, oh, I like little kids, you're a little kid, I'll protect you just because you're a little kid. Like, Oda could have done so much to kind of show how Nami sees herself in Tama, sees herself in the struggles that Tama's going through, and, you know, kind of personalize that connection and be like, oh, Nami wants to help them because she knows what it's like, you know, to be put in a situation like this, and no one should ever have to go through something like that. And instead, like, this is why I say low hanging fruit, because Oda's just like, oh, you know, how's Nami gonna get emotionally invested? evil person's gonna smack a child. Ha 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 ha. Ulti's so evil. Ah. Like, it's just lazy storytelling when there is something more narratively enriching he could have gone for in this arc. And that applies to so many of the other Straw Hats where we could have built up such a deeper emotional connection or investment from them in the people of this arc. Yet a shit ton of it has just been kind of like them being blasé, being like, oh, Luffy's gonna be the Pirate King. Oh, we have to take down Kaido. Oh, because, suddenly these people are evil now, so I suddenly care. And it just bugs me because it's such lazy writing that doesn't need to be lazy, and I don't know why Oda suddenly shifted towards this. I don't know if it's because, he's kind of become too enamored with his own creativity and like with his own ideas, and he's just kind of decided to forego the story to kind of just cram in as much of these ideas as he can in the time he has left, kind of write out the story before, his health and everything else kind of like forces him to stop. Like, I don't know what the reasoning is, but to me it is blatantly obvious that there is a decline in the quality of his storytelling. So honestly, I don't know. Like, yeah, I know a lot of people will find this moment really super compelling and all that, but to me there's so many better ways he could have handled it, and I don't really give a shit about any of this. Like, yeah, honestly, at this point, like, Ulti smacking a child is like villainy 101 writing at this point. Like, I don't care if she gets taken down. If Nami gets a fight, I guess hooray, finally she'll get a fight, she'll get to do something. Yeah, honestly, we'll see what it is. At this point, I'm just so bored with the series. One last quick thing before I wrap up this video here. Zeus is obviously coming back to Nami, but I wanted to touch on something again. Like, this is why like the fandom's like critical thinking skills kind of bug me, because the fandom's like, I was always been like perpetually convinced like, oh, Nami's eventually gonna get Zeus, she's gonna get a power up, blah blah blah. I don't take issue with any of that. Like, that's been an obvious thread that's gonna happen. But the thing that's always been confusing to me is like, alright, but why would Zeus just swap sides to Nami, or why would Big Mom just let her have Zeus when Zeus has a piece of Big Mom's soul inside of him? At this point, the only narrative way that makes sense that Big Mom would just let Zeus like go to Nami's side, like just let her be used by an enemy, because as the chapter proves, like, Big Mom does still think of them as an enemy. So unless Big Mom somehow either like just decides like, oh, I have Hera now, Zeus is useless, I don't give a shit, I'm just gonna give him to you. That's possible. Narratively, it would not feel like it would work. That feels like, Oda just coming up with an excuse to give Nami a power up. Not out of the question. So that could be the possibility of how it happens. The other possibility being that the only other way I see that possibility happening, and this is something I've always expected to happen, it's just not so early on yet, is Big Mom turning into an ally of the Straw Hats and eventually just either putting a piece of Nami's soul into, the original thundercloud that Zeus was made up of, or just, telling her, oh, you're my friend now, you just take Zeus, whatever. But we'll have to see. That's still way, way, way out in the future before we'll eventually ever have to deal with that. But just the idea that they'd still be, the Nami, or not Nami, the Straw Hats and Big Mom would still be, rivals and antagonists, and that she somehow just give them Zeus never really made sense to me, with how much the fandom just bought into the idea that that's just was going to happen and would make narrative sense. It always just bugged me. With that said, though, given how... So my One Piece videos haven't been doing as well as they normally typically do these last few weeks, which I'm not complaining about because I've honestly gotten a lot more quality over quantity for my last few review reactions. So really shout out to everyone that has been giving me, the likes, thumbs up for my One Piece reviews. I really do appreciate that. Uh, yeah, but like the views have been on the lower ends than what they're used to. Honestly, given how annoyed and tired this chapter made me, I might just take another break or hiatus from the series until something changes. Because if this is literally going to be the end, like if the next couple of chapters we do start seeing, the pairing off for the one-on-ones, and we actually see the fights getting into, the drive, getting into motion, we can see that the end is actually getting near. Then I honestly don't see a point to continue doing reviews where I just talk about how much I hate this and how bad the narrative is. Because if that does happen, I guarantee Wano is the worst arc in the series. It's not even going to be a contest. Like right now, that place is held by Whole Cake Island, but this one might just like usurp Whole Cake Island's place as the worst arc in the series. So yeah, I might take a break until we get confirmation one way or another that things are going to change, and either the narrative will become more compelling because the Straw Hats will actually start to lose and we'll actually see, you know, some of the themes actually start to play out, or we'll see that Oda's just kind of lost his touch and this really is the climax, and not to expect more from it. So we'll see which way it goes, I think, before I go back to doing reviews again. Because on the one hand, these reviews aren't like too much effort to do, so I could still continue to do them if there is enough demand for it. But like I said, the view counts and everything else don't make it seem like there isn't too much demand. So I'm not super wary about giving up the reviews and just maybe posting thoughts on Twitter. I'm also considering, because I've been thinking about doing this for a while, and I might finally set this up this week, is I might finally set up a site or a blog, because I've been meaning to migrate some old editorials and articles and things I've written. So I might shift to that being the new format rather than doing a video review. Maybe I'll just do like a quick blog write-up every week about my thoughts on the chapters and things. So that anyone that is interested in my thoughts, has a way to kind of see what they are, things like that. But like I said, I'll make some kind of decision. We'll see if anyone really does want me to do a review. Like if you see the next chapter and you decide, it's something you want my thoughts and opinions on, you want a video on, send me a DM, or maybe I'll just do a Twitter poll every week saying, hey, should I review this week's chapter, and just do like a short poll to see what the reactions are or something like that. But yeah, right now I think I really need a break from the series because fatigue really is setting in. And honestly, I've got a backlog of read-through stuff to get through that I'd rather spend my time on. So I'd rather shift my energy towards that instead. But yeah, that was it. Tried to keep it as succinct as I could. Went a little over time than I expected, but still generally short video compared to the usual ones. I hope you all enjoyed my thoughts and rants on the chapter. As always, if you like my content, please do like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I know I haven't been super active recently. I apologize. It's going to be like that for a little while longer. Hopefully in June I'll be back into it, the full grind. So look forward to the videos and stuff coming back then. Like I said, I'll do a channel update today with kind of like a general timeline. Once we get closer to June, I'll make that a little bit more specific with actual dates for when series are coming back and things like that. As always, thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, this is Ash. I'll talk to you all later.